The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet Stupid.
No. It's the planet Stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid eco-journalist, Belinda Weymouth. Hi, Belinda.
Hi, everybody. How are we?
The planet is sending us the most grim of messages.
Yeah,
and we find
sure
ourselves in a California that is beset by unprecedented fires and Santa Ana winds. Mm-hmm. I want to get to how unprecedented and how remarkable through the decades the growth of some of these winds has become, how much more supercharged, if I can use that word, they are. But before I get to that, there are a lot of questions. We've been talking about it on the show, the origins of at least one of these huge fires, the Palisades fire that, engulfed the Palisades, eliminated an entire community, moved up the coast to Malibu, and eliminated so much of that community, on both sides of the Pacific Coast Highway. Yeah. And one of the theories that I felt was absurd is apparently not absurd at all. No. It's the theory that there were fireworks on New Year's Eve along a trail, and that embers from those fireworks 6 days later could be reanimated essentially by these winds and actually cause these fires. Is that, you're telling me that really does track? That?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, look, we've
Explain,
got video.
please.
We've got video that was taken. That you're going to better see it. You're going to see this tiny piece of smoke that starts coming because of. I mean, we had to have the winds. It would not have happened without the winds. But so you can see that little. And the video goes. See, it's just a tiny bit of smoke. So that's up on the trailhead going up to Skull Rock. Topanga Canyon.
Right. Temescal Trail. Right.
Yeah. So the Temescal Trail. So what happened was New Year's Eve. There were revelers up there. They decided it was okay to let off fireworks, even though, dry as a bone and fuel and kindling everywhere. And they did it. And guess what? There was a fire. The fire burned 8 acres. It took the fire department almost 3 hours of bringing up buckets, the planes full of water to put it out. They eventually put it out on January 1st at 4:20 a.m. Now, what happens is you can put out the 8 acres. It all looks fine. There can be embers that are either in the ground. They can be inside a piece of wood that looks like it's, sodden with water and the fire is out. And those can have what's called a reignition event. Now, fire departments know about it. They know about this in Hawaii, in Colorado. That fire that we just had in Hawaii, that, they put the fire out and then they left. And then it got reignited. Well, this is what they believe happened up here. And on the morning of January 7th, a local said he was out hiking and he said he smelt smoke, but then when he walked back down the trail, it was gone. And then those winds really picked up and then it took off. So you can see it, playing over and over again. And if you scroll down, we can look at the satellite imagery, which shows where the fire, the burn scar is from the initial fire that happened on New Year's Eve. It's just 8 acres. And when we see the satellite photo of it, you can see it's a small area. Now, it's that green area on the right with the rectangle around it. Vegetation that's alive is red in these satellite images, and then the green is where the scar is, and that's where that smoke came from, and that's where they believe, the theory that embers blew out of that and then reignited the hill.
So if you look on the left, because there are 2 images you're seeing, one's on December 26th, and you can see there's no burn scar area. Yep. And now on January 5th, there is a burn scar area because of that fireworks and the small fire, the 8-acre fire that Belinda's talking about. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what there is up there, there's police tape all around it. There are broken beer bottles up there. There are logs that they had obviously built a bonfire with. There's the debris of the New Year's Eve party and the fireworks, and revelers. And that's where that smoke comes out of. And then you just need to, with how dry everything is up there, because we're in a drought situation now. And then with wind, which is, this incredible, the fuel and the spark, away goes a reignition, event. And we see, what then happened and how quickly it got out of control because of, how incredibly strong the Santa Ana winds, were last week. I mean, one place outside Altadena recorded 100 miles an hour, and there are 32 other weather stations around Los Angeles that all recorded, 70-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, it was unprecedented.
So when we, just to put a button on this, talk about man-made fire, that is to say, we had investigative journalist on the other day who was saying that public officials are privately saying, sort of off the record, on the record, it was 100% man-caused, meaning, human caused, I think she said. Meaning there was something they didn't want to commit to exactly what it was, but it wasn't a natural event in some way or a power line downed that caused this Palisades fire. Now you put some specifics on it, and that which was talked about, which was this New Year's Eve thing, you actually can track it here, and it's a remarkable thing. And I have to say, again, I was naive on this. I didn't think there was any way that those embers could have that kind of staying power over days. I mean, it's almost a week later. And they were reignited.
Like in Hawaii, the fire happened in the morning, and I think it was in the afternoon when it reignited. But
at least in Hawaii, it's same day anyway. I mean, at least that seems more conceivable to me.
Yeah. Well, the thing that the fire department, say is that, yes, they know this can happen, but to leave personnel, up there when there are already, needs in so many other directions. And obviously we know that the fire department, got, money's got allocated in different directions, but they don't have enough staff to be monitoring a place, a burn scar like this. Well, obviously heading into the future, they're going to have to be. We can't leave what could become a reignition site just left, unmonitored. It's not going to be feasible.
This is extraordinary. It really is extraordinary. So now to the winds, because the winds are the things that that was the element that did reignite in this case. And of course, as you suggested, in Altadena, it's the thing that produced that devastation. It's the thing that's produced the devastation across California, in instances in Northern California as well, Paradise, Sonoma, et cetera. The graph that I saw is stark. It shows the way the climate has changed so radically. Now, it's been a long time, but the graph that we have, do you have it, Kim? And Belinda, you can take us through this. Now, what does SAW stand for?
So that's Santa Ana winds. And what you're looking at on the left-hand side is the fires that happened 70 years ago in the 1950s. And then we're looking on the right-hand side at where we're at in 2020. And there are two things that are happening, that we have to, sort of really wrap our minds around, and really we have to make friends with reality, because this is the reality that we live in now. And we before
we make friends, I just want to, because people are staring at this, I just want to orient them for a second. That's an entire year on the left, an entire year on the right, but it's 1 year. Am I right about this? I'm thinking the months are there on the bottom, and the months are there on the bottom on the right as well. And the number of fires is that number that you're seeing on the left. Okay, in both cases. Okay, so, go ahead.
So in 2050, you barely at all, but you get them in September, November, and then in the one on the right for 2020, you can see this marked increase. Now, the thing about the Santa Ana the period of winds, that goes from October through to January. And what happens to sort of, mitigate them is that, the fire season just used to last during the summer when it was hot. Well, now fire season doesn't end at the end of summer. It goes on and on and on because it's dry. We don't have enough moisture out there. And so now we've got the Santa Ana winds, but we've got them also, we've got this overlap with fire season. And that's what's so incredibly, dangerous, because fire is one thing, but those powerful winds, as you were just saying, those are the things that, push them out. And then, suddenly we've gone from, 200 acres, they were calling the Pacific Palisades fire, till the next thing it's, 12,000 acres.
So to be clear, the Santa Ana months haven't changed. I wanted to make that clear. I mean, I have a background a bit in meteorology, so I can just speak to this a little bit. So if you look at the graphic on the left, you see that those are the Santa Ana months. They come maybe late September, October, but typically it really gets cranked up November, December, and maybe even a bit of January. It's sort of it's a late fall winter phenomenon. So the same timing exists today. But what you're saying is the dryness is the difference. The rainy season, which also coincides with typically the winter months, that's not showing up in a big enough way anymore.
Yeah, well, particularly not this winter. We've
certainly
had,
not this year,
Los Angeles has had not even 1/5 of an inch of rain this, since the 1st of October. Normally by this stage of the year, the new year, we'd be at almost 5 inches of rain. So we're incredibly dry. Everything is really, really desiccated. There's fuel everywhere, and they can't have controlled burns. When you're in a drought, number one, water is scarce, so you don't want to use, you don't want to have water standing by for a controlled burn. And it's too dangerous because there's too much, kindling basically is what all that growth. And they call them now hydroclimate whiplash scenarios. And we went from a whiplash. You remember the end of 2023, 2024, that was a really wet winter. It was great. And it, it refills the aquifers underground, the reservoirs above ground. It's like, yay. But it causes all this fuel to grow, all the grasses and the bushes, they all grow like mad. Well, then we didn't have any, then there's no moisture. We have this, the hottest year on record. I mean, if I sound like a broken record, Mark, it's because records are being broken, nonstop right now. 2023 was the hottest year on record. Then it was 2024. So we whiplashed from this really wet winter to this really dry summer. And then there are two other factors that I want to sort of, put into the equation to sort of really get people's, heads around what's going on. So the heating up atmosphere that we have above us, Daniel Swain, the weather guy at UCLA, who I've worked with, who's fantastic. He calls the atmosphere now, he said it's like a sponge. It's so warm, and only the tiniest amount of increase in pressure, in temperature, of that air, it can hold exponentially more water.
Sure.
So it holds more and more water, meaning it's holding on to it. So you've got a drought, on the ground. And then when it gets to the point where it's going to release that water, there's so much in it. Then we have this mad flooding happening. And so that's the hydroclimate whiplash. You're going from droughts to floods. We're seeing this in, Eastern Africa. And then we've just had this happen here in California. And then, this is showing the disparity. This is the whiplash. And what they're saying is that those numbers that you can see on the left-hand side, the 31 to 66%, what they're saying is that climate change and how much we have heated up the atmosphere is increasing the chances of these whiplash events to happen. So we've increased them by almost 2/3. I don't want to get too much into numbers.
I think a lot of people are just kind of auditing the class, and they don't want to get in too heavily into it.
I know. I'm gonna resist. I'm gonna resist.
But I do think we can just speak to what's happening, particularly in the graphic on the right, which just talks about, or maybe it's just a pretty picture to look at, while you talk about the fact that these whiplash events, as you call them, and I wonder if you could just, again, kind of reiterate what they are and how they're happening all over the world, because that, I think, speaks to the broader problem. It's not just Southern California, America, North America, et cetera.
Yeah, no, it's everywhere. So you've got this really hot atmosphere that, as it heats up just by, like a 1 degree or, a half a degree, it can exponentially hold so much more water, like a great big sponge up there. And so what it means is the droughts are worse, and then the floods are worse, because when that sponge, gets, the atmospheric pressure works on it, and it, there's just so much more moisture that can come down. And, California, obviously, because we only get our rain, during the winter months, we love having a wet winter. But it can be super destructive as well. And this is what the world is seeing, because if you go through a drought period and fires like we've just, we're having here in California, we're going to have no vegetation when that rain comes. Like if we got a big rain event now, we would have, terrible mudslides and things because there's no vegetation.
That's what happened in Santa Barbara, Montecito area, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that, that killed 17 people. It's terrible. But I just want to talk about one other thing that's happening and why we got Santa Ana's at 100, hurricane level, offshore winds. So right now there's a high pressure system on the Eastern Pacific. I don't know if that looks like east or west to viewers, but it's on the eastern side of the Pacific. So you've got this high pressure, and what it's doing is it's forcing all this energy southward through California. And so the Santa Anas are blowing down slope, which is why they, on Tuesday just went straight down, from Pacific Palisades and up into Mescal Canyon, where that ignition event happened, all the way to Malibu, and just, destroyed everything in its path. They go down slope and offshore. So that's what's making the Santa Ana, or what made them last week, why Tuesday was so unprecedented. And, the winds of 70 to 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, and the wind moves from high pressure to low pressure, and the tighter that gradient or difference, the greater the pressure difference, that higher pressure and lower pressure, the more intense the wind. So the Santa Ana event is set up when you have that intensely high pressure, which meets an intensely low pressure, which is exactly what we had. I mean, it was a really like a perfect scenario for this. But this graphic is saying wildfires are growing much faster than they have before in California and other western states. From 2001 to 2020, the average peak daily growth rate for these fires more than doubled, 249% relative to 2001 in the western United States. I mean, that's an extraordinary fact. And I mean, it's a challenge to livability, to be honest.
Well, this is the thing. It really is. And I think that, this has to be a wake-up call. I've heard people sort of saying, well, it's just happening to, woke Californians, and it needs to, happen in other parts of the US for people to really get it. But people are hurting in lots of other states with, these heat waves that we've been living through. It's not just here, and this has to be a wake-up call. Pepperdine University, you know how they don't evacuate, they didn't evacuate their students in that
they sheltered in place, I think, right? Yeah,
because they have this thing where Pepperdine, they've got, it's all just a field around them. They don't have trees, they don't have, it's very sparsely that's showing the plane coming in, and dropping the water. It's really amazing, those planes. It takes them 12 seconds when they're over a reservoir or a lake. Well, that's dropping flame retardant. But I was watching a thing today about how they land on the water, and they have these things that open underneath the wings, and it takes 12 seconds to fill up with 1,400 gallons of water. But they have to keep the plane absolutely level as they're skimming across the top of the water, and then they race back to the fire.
They're heroes, and you realize, and I made this point on the air, and we're running out of time, but these fires, the immensity of these fires, can only be fought from the air. I mean, I'm not to say that the work being done on the ground isn't critical. I mean, it really is. But you won't get the upper hand on these sorts of immense infernos without an aerial attack. And that's why the minute there's a diminishment of the winds, they were able to go into action. And you're right. I mean, the skill level required not only to fill up, but then to drop in those strategically specific targeted areas. I mean, it's just amazing. Courtney and I were watching a mashup of these helicopter pilots from inside the cockpit, and we were in tears. I mean, literally crying because we're so grateful to them. Admittedly, she starts crying first, and then I'm crying because she's crying. But the point is, the work they do really does bring you, make you emotional, because it's that remarkable. So we got to wrap up. But you were just saying, that all over the West and all over the country, the extremes are being played out in one way or another, and particularly in the way of heat.
Yeah. The hotter, it's all about a hotter atmosphere and what a hotter atmosphere means, and this, all this moisture that's in there that then makes the the tornadoes, the hurricanes, all that. The atmosphere is full of moisture and energy, and it's making the storms, the droughts, the hurricane, everything is at a higher level, and we really are going to have to. We have to get into the reality of this, and we have to realize that this really is, a top priority. It's we can't ignore it and call it a hoax, and that we're going to drill, baby, drill, and life is going to be great, and we're going to go back to the old American ways. This is the new America. This is the new reality. This is the new world, and we have to get smart about it. Now, right now.
Well, I thought you would have some good news in all of this, but clearly
I do actually.
This particular visit, you don't. Yeah, we don't have time. Well, you certainly buried whatever good news you had. You buried it.
I didn't want to. I wanted to tell you the good news.
For next time, we're out of time. Yeah. So grateful for your input, and wow, you really did educate us tonight and educate me on this. This phenomenon by which these embers, days old, could be reanimated, just for starters, alongside all the other ways you've educated me. You can find Belinda Weymouth across social media. Are you on Blue Sky yet, or are only on X or Twitter?
I don't really do a lot on. I used to put everything up on Twitter, on X, that we were doing on the show, and I'm sort of. But yeah, maybe I need to go to Blue Sky and put up.
Well, I don't know. I'm doing the slow walk away from Twitter, but I'll tell you, none of these guys can pass the purity test. Musk, Zuckerberg, who runs Facebook, etc. I don't know where to what social platform you're supposed to migrate, because it looks as though it's all pretty grim, but. Anyway, we know we can find you here, which is pretty great. Belinda Weymouth, thank you. Really
My
great
pleasure.
Info today. Yeah. Belinda Weymouth over there. That's It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More
It's the Planet Stupid. No, it's the Planet Stupid.
next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.